Hello, and thank you for joining us for the Pharmacy Cannabis Lecture Series. Every session is designed to deliver a small and in-depth dose of cannabis education. My name is Candace Hawes, and I want to thank all of our viewers for being with us, and also all of our customers from Pharmacy Santa Ana, Santa Barbara, and Berkeley, as well as the Pottery in LA for being with us today. Today, we're going to be talking about autism and the benefit that many families have found for their loved ones. Our guest speakers today are the founders of Whole Plant Access for Autism, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that works to educate families about the possible benefits of cannabis for autism. Founded in 2016, WPAA, Whole Plant Access for Autism, works with families all over the world that have a loved one with autism spectrum disorder. These families either don't want to use pharmaceutical drugs or have tried many pharmaceutical drugs with little or no success in treating some of the most significant symptoms of autism, such as self-injury, aggression towards loved ones, severe insomnia, cognitive impairment, and communication difficulties. WPAA believes that education is the key to helping families find success for cannabis with autism symptom management. They work with like-minded organizations and doctors to bring awareness about alternatives that can help so many. Our guests today are the two founders of WPAA, and I'm so excited to have them with us. Rhonda Moeller is a mother of two children, one of which is on the autism spectrum. She was born and raised in California and graduated as the valedictorian of her high school class and received a full scholarship to attend Cal State University Long Beach. Graduating magna cum laude with her BS in biochemistry, Rhonda went to attend UC Irvine for their PhD in structural biology program. 3 years into that program, she put it on hold as she joined the workforce as a quality control manager at a local environmental chemistry laboratory. After working there for about 10 years, Rhonda decided to leave her position as a QCM and work part-time in order to spend more time with her daughter who needed more support. When it came time to consider medications for her child, she knew that pharmaceuticals and the side effects were not going to be an option. So she decided to start researching alternative biomedical options. And being in California, cannabis came up as a suggestion by another family member. In January of 2016, she got a recommendation from her doctor for her daughter, and she was amazed by the results. And we'll hear a little bit more about her story and the journey that she went with her daughter. Jenni May is the other guest speaker with us today, and she's the mother of 3 adult and teen sons on the autism spectrum. She's originally from Wisconsin and now lives in Southern California. Jenni and her husband jumped at the chance to move to a medically legal state in order to try a different treatment, cannabis, on their middle son, Nate, who had an extremely difficult time managing his severely aggressive and self-injurious behaviors with traditional pharmaceuticals. Jenni received her undergraduate degree from Southeast Missouri State University and her Master of Science in Nonprofit Administration from Louisiana State University, Shreveport. She applies her education and real-life world experience as a parent who has spent decades searching for safe and effective treatment options for her 2 children and to help many others on the same journey. When Rhonda and Jenni met during their cannabis journey, they decided to start this organization, Whole Plant Access for Autism, as a local support group. But since it has grown so much more, it has grown into a worldwide community. So I'm so excited to have Rhonda and Jenni with us today. We're going to start with a presentation, and then I have some questions for them as well. Thank you guys for being with me today.
Thank you, Candace.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, I've loved watching your guys' organization grow. I remember, what was it, 2016? So 6 years ago is when you guys founded this. Yeah. And it's just grown by leaps and bounds, and you've helped so many people. I love your guys' Facebook page and seeing all the families that interact there. I love to see all the tools that you guys have on your website. So I'm really excited to have you guys on and to be able to share this information with so many people. So please go ahead and start with your presentation.
Okay. So hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Our presentation is going to be quick. I wanted to get to the questions and answers section so that we can go over what you guys need. Again, as Candace mentioned, we are not medical professionals. We are 2 moms Even though I have a science background, I'm not a doctor. Didn't finish my PhD. I can't claim that. Not a medical doctor, and we can't really diagnose or tell you what to do with your child. You do need to go see a doctor. Hopefully, you're in a legal state or area where you can have access to that. We can provide some basic information, and that's what we do in our support group as well. But we, as a nonprofit, that's we legally can't do that for you guys. So just that reminder, and thanks Candace for telling them that as well. So I'm gonna start with my story. This is my daughter. She was, as Candace mentioned, diagnosed with autism at the age of 3, and everything was going pretty normal for an autistic child in our lives until she got into kindergarten at the age of 5, and her aggression was becoming out of control. It was becoming more frequent. She was getting to be more aggressive, and it just wasn't looking good for her at her school. I was having to deal with a lot of notes from the teachers, and I felt really awful every day picking her up from school because I'd get that note saying she hit somebody, she spit on somebody, she kicked somebody, and there was nothing that I could do for her. So her father and I discussed what we wanted to do, and we decided to go the cannabis route after some research. I found a doctor, Dr. Goldstein, to work with us here in California. And it wasn't a grand slam. We didn't try cannabis the first day and find exactly what worked for her. It took us a few weeks of trial and error, and I think that's pretty normal with the families that we work with. It does take a little bit of trial and error to find what works for your child. I think it took about 3 weeks, maybe a month. And we saw a huge difference in her behaviors. Her aggression went away. Her sleeping got better, things that I wasn't even trying to treat. I didn't know cannabis was going to help with her bathroom issues. She had a lot of bathroom issues, a lot of GI issues. Those cleared up after a few months. Her speaking got better. She was speaking more clearly. She was able to focus in her therapies at a level that she wasn't able to do before. And it wasn't us just noticing it. It was everybody else because we didn't tell anybody what we were doing. Even though it was legal in California, we were advised not to share that information with people because of people calling CPS here in California to take away our kids. So we just were not telling anybody what we were doing, and we got a lot of questions because everyone was noticing. Family was noticing. Her grandparents, her aunt, her therapist, her aides, her teachers. Everybody was asking us, what are you doing with your kid? Because she was one way before, and now she's a different child now. And because we weren't telling people what we were doing, we were just kind of saying we were doing some diet changes, different vegetables, adding them in. And we got by with that for a while. And it seemed like she was just on a different level. And again, her therapies that she'd been in since she was 3 were now just working a lot better for her because she was able to focus on her therapies and get through them. So I just was so amazed by what we saw that we had to continue to advocate for this and to educate as best we could, because when we started, we had nothing to go on. I mean, we're in California, so we were lucky we found a doctor, but there just wasn't much information out there. There wasn't anything on the web. There wasn't any support groups. There wasn't really anyone talking about it too much. I think I found a few YouTube videos and a couple blogs, and that was it. So there wasn't a lot to go on. And that's when I decided with the help of Jenni, to start educating people about how you can start this process. Because I think it's important that this is an option for families to look into. You don't have to do it. You can decide not to, but I think it should be available to everybody to say, this is something that I want to learn about, and I want to see if this is appropriate for my child. And you should have that information. You should be able to decide for yourself. So that's what the nonprofit is about: educating families, educating people who want to look into this for their child or for themselves if they're autistic individuals, and getting that information about how it can be helpful, and the basic science that's out there that's available now, and feeling safe about your decision and what you're going to do for your child, because it's a hard decision, and it's a decision a lot of families have to face, whether to medicate or not, whether to provide different supplements or not. And everyone should be given as much information as they need to make the decision for themselves. So that's my story. I'll let Jenni tell her story.
Okay, well, I'm Jenni, and Nate has made a guest appearance. So wasn't planned, but we'll see how this goes. Yeah, we are originally from Wisconsin. We lived in Missouri for a couple of years, and then we moved here in 2015. But really, well, Nate was diagnosed at 18 months. He already had an older brother who had a diagnosis of autism, and he's got a younger brother too. They're all in their 20s now. But Nate started on the pharmaceutical path when he was about 5 years old. And as he got older and puberty hit, the aggression just really escalated. And I don't want to, for his privacy, I don't want to get into a lot of it since he's sitting here. So I do want to take that into account. But he just struggled a lot with self-injury and just having difficulty with some of his actions around other people. And we did have some dangerous times there, some hospitalizations, things like that. And the medical community, mainstream medicine, I guess, their solution was just to keep piling on more and more medications, mood stabilizers, antipsychotics, benzodiazepines, just, it didn't fix anything. It just, in fact, it made it worse. And Nathan is also diabetic. And I truly do think that the atypical antipsychotics that he was on for years and never had any of the apparently strongly recommended blood work to check for blood glucose levels, it was never done. So I think that had we had this option of medical cannabis when he was 5, he might not be diabetic now. He might not have to have shots for the rest of his life. That's just me speculating. But we were in kind of a rough situation with him, and we were at the point where we were looking for alternative living situations, and they weren't really panning out. Just, we couldn't find a proper environment for that. And now I'm glad we never did. I think it was maybe a sort of a blessing in disguise that things just got as challenging as they did. And we did push to come here. And I saw one video. It was like one small news clip of a young boy in somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. I can't remember which state offhand, but he had some pretty severe bouts of self-injury, and it was kind of one of those like neck snapping things, like what do they give him? What are they doing? And it wasn't really even on our radar. And I'm just, that's it. We hit everything else. Every other mainstream option that they could offer us has failed. So now we have to really think way outside of the box. And California was an option that had that, an option for us to move to that had the option for him. And within, I think, probably a month of us moving here, I was already looking for doctors. I knew nothing about cannabis, nothing. I mean, I even the dispensary, when I finally did get the rec for him, the bud tender that was desperately trying to help us, and I had Nate with, she didn't know anything about autism either. And thankfully there was actually a security guard there, who kind of like elbowed and was sort of pointing stuff out to me. And I don't know the terms. I don't know anything about it. But you know, I wish I could hug that security guard, you know, to this day. I haven't seen him in several years, but, you know, cause he really did change our lives. And within 3 days of, going by his suggestions, I could actually physically see changes, when we took pictures of him. And, you know, the self-injury has gone from, you know, daily episodes to where we might have one once every 3 to 4 months. And of those every 3 to 4 months, there might be 1 or 2 per year, that kind of really escalate. But even with that, because we did teach him how to vape very, very early on, I can actually normally stop those escalations before they even really get anywhere. So, you know, I'm thrilled that California does have, you know, different intake methods available, and that we have flower available, and a lot of states unfortunately just don't. They're so restricted to edibles and oils or whatever. But, you know, in order to really be able to use cannabis as medicine, you have to be able to have just a full gamut of, different options available to you to have the most success and the most information too. You know, we really do, rely heavily on, knowing what the terpene profiles are. And, you know, I have to be able to utilize flower. That's entirely what he uses. You know, he doesn't take oils. He doesn't take any edibles unless I make them out of flower. But, you know, we're just kind of really, succeeding with the very basics of cannabis, I guess, but with as much information as we can get from that plant.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing your guys' stories.
Yeah, thank you, Jenni. I'll go through these slides pretty quickly. The rest of it's just going to be some basic information about WPA4A and what we do. And then we'll open it up to questions and answers. Please, if you guys have any questions, I believe Candace said there's a Q&A section up there by the chat. Please enter them there. And once you get through the presentation and a couple of Candace's questions that she's already written down, we'll address your questions to the best of our ability. Please keep in mind we're not doctors or medical professionals, and we can't, you know, address certain types of questions. But we can do the best to kind of get you some, you know, where to go, guidance type of stuff. Okay, so again, Whole Plant Access for Autism. We are a nonprofit organization. We work with individuals and organizations in the cannabis industry, in the medical field, and researchers as well. We're founded by 2 moms, so that's, you know, Jenni and I. We have autistic children. This is what we use for our children. We have a couple programs that we'll go over, what we do as a nonprofit, and how we help the community. And again, we're always looking for volunteers, always looking for help because we are a nonprofit, always looking for donations too. Just putting that out there. So our data collection program, this is what we do in our support group. And we'll talk more about our support group in a minute. But we do run polls in our support group, and we ask them questions about what is working for them, what symptoms are you treating, how is it working, what doses are you using, what strains are you finding helpful, different combinations of cannabinoids. We try and get into the nitty-gritty of what parents want to know. And again, we're not doctors, but what we do is take that information from the polls and we graph it on these pretty graphs. And we provide that for the support group and for the members in our nonprofit. And we tell them, hey, look at, if you want to know what strain to use, look at the most used strain for the families that use cannabis for autism. And, you know, take what you can from that information. Maybe we should start there. What's the dosing that you should be using? We're not doctors, but most of the families in our support group use this dose. So maybe that's what you should be targeting. Again, we always advise you to go see a doctor and get a doctor's help. But we provide you the information of what other families are doing, because that seemed to be the most of the questions that we answer in our support group is, how do I start? What do I do? You know, what do I dose? And we just provide them with the data for what the other families are doing, which is kind of what you do in a support group anyways. You ask a question, you get information from other families. So we put it all on a nice graph, make it very visual for people, and they can take that information and go from there. We do also help fund some research. I think there was a question that I saw pop up about some research. This was a study that was done fairly recently. I think it was last year right when the pandemic started, so 2020-ish. Companies called Cannabis. What they were doing was collecting saliva of children that were using cannabis, and they were comparing it to saliva of children that were not using cannabis. And they were looking for different, what are called biomarkers. Those are just compounds that are found in the saliva. And they were comparing them amongst the children with autism to the children without, before and after cannabis use. And what they found was that cannabis was a great tool for the kids in moving those biomarkers in the saliva from out of the normal range back into the normal range. Again, they were looking at kids without autism, and they were comparing the saliva to those kids. And so they were seeing the values either too high or too low move back into the normal range with the use of cannabis. So that was some pretty groundbreaking research, and it was a pilot study. So the study was kind of small. It was only about 12 kids with a certain age range, and they're going to be opening up a larger study. I believe I talked to them in May, I'm sorry. And they're looking at by the end of this year, to beginning of next year, to start a larger study and open it up to more children. And what they will do is they'll do the same type of thing, collect the saliva, and they're going to also provide the families with the data. So whatever, they're going to punch it into their computer, and whatever the computer says as far as what the computer thinks will work best for the child based off of their algorithms that they're generating, it'll pop out some sort of like, this is what you might want to start with. That's kind of the whole hope of these studies is to kind of get an idea for families as to where to start. And it's not, I don't think, always going to be accurate, but hopefully the science gets to a point where they can just look at your children's saliva and say, this is what's going to work. That's the goal, and take a lot of the trial and error out of everything, because there is a bit of trial and error with this. So that's what they're working on. If you want more information, their website's there at the bottom. It's pretty small. It's pharmaceuticals.com. You do have, I don't think we have the slides available, do we, Candace?
No, we didn't make the slides available.
pharmaceuticals.com. You can go to their website. You can find out more about their studies and the upcoming study. You can also join a support group, and I'll give you that information in a minute. And we'll be posting about that as soon as that becomes available. We're going to be gathering volunteers from amongst our support group to do that study. So if you guys are interested in that, that's where we'll be posting some information about that later on, probably later this year.
Is that for families that live in California, or are families able to send the saliva samples through the mail?
They're going to send it through the mail. The first pilot study, which is, here's their website. The first pilot study was just here in California. They kept it small and they kept it here because it was a pilot study. But now they're going to open it up to people all over the United States, and they're going to ship it in the mail. They're going to use dry ice to ship it, and they're going to instruct the families how to ship it back. So it's going to be open to all ages, boys and girls, all severity levels, high functioning or severe. And they're going, like I said, they're going to provide them with the data. So they're working on using the saliva that they've collected to create algorithms to see, okay, this is the best, or possibly the best dose. This is possibly the best cannabinoid to start with. And they're going to provide that to you. And then what's going to happen is, if you're involved in the study, they will ask for feedback because they want to fine tune these algorithms. They want to make sure, they want to get these algorithms as close to perfect as possible. So if you're involved in the study, they will ask you to give them feedback. Okay, you know, the algorithm says this, you tried that, like, what was your outcome? Like, did it work? Did it not work? They got to fine tune the algorithm a bit. And in the end, like I said, the hope is for a commercial product that they can put on the market where a family can say, you know, I want to try cannabis for my child. Let me buy a $30 saliva kit, you know, test my child's saliva and see what they say, according to the algorithms, is going to be a good starting point. And that's where we're hoping to go, because we have some families that try cannabis and it works for them immediately, and those are very lucky. And we have a lot of families, and I think the majority, that try cannabis and it takes them 2-3 months to see something. It takes a lot of trial and error. It takes a lot of going back to the dispensary and trying different things and finding what works. And once they find it, they're very happy. But it's just a lot of, is this the right thing for my child? Am I doing the right thing? I'm spending a lot of money trying to find what works. It would be nice to have a shortcut, you know. Start here. This is probably the best way to go. Hopefully, you know, we'll see. So yeah, that's their website. Again, if you want more information, you can join a support group as well, because we're going to be posting about that as soon as the study opens up, and we're going to be gathering volunteers for that study. Excuse me. Education and outreach. So this is what we do for our families. We go to different conferences. We have a booth. See a little corner up there, a picture of Jenni and I and another associate. We go and we talk about what cannabis has done for our children. We provide handouts to families. So I think in the handouts up there by the Q&A and the polls, you can find some of these handouts that we have created for families. And like for this one that says Cannabis and Autism, or Cannabis for Autism, that was a study that was done, I believe, in 2018. And we just took the results from that study that was published. I think it was out of Israel. And we summarized it for them and put it in a way that was more visual, because a lot of people can't pick up a scientific paper and read it and understand it. So we make little visuals for families so that they can see that this is the data. It's looking like it's working. We still need more data, but you know, the results that are coming out, a lot of it's out of Israel, but the results that are coming out are looking really good. We do our own webinars as well. We do webinars like this for other people, just about different topics that our families want to learn about. Again, cannabinoids here is just a little card that talks about the cannabinoids provided to families. Some additional resources. Again, we have our website. That's WPAA4A. That's the number 4.org. That's our website. You can go there. We do have a membership, and there's a small fee to join the membership. And that fee does go to support the programs that we do, the research that we help fund, some of the other programs that we have, the software that we buy to create those infographics, the data collection software, all that stuff does take some money. So all of the fees that we, and again, the membership is like $30 a year. If you do go that route, it's going to support what we do as a nonprofit. Or we do have our Facebook support group. That support group is huge. We're at 30,000 people. And we do get a little overwhelmed at times because we get a lot of people in there with a lot of basic questions. So we do ask if you join a support group to try and do your own research We have a lot of files in the support group that are free to access and read through. We have a lot of what's called pinned posts, which are posts at the very top of the support group of commonly asked questions that we've answered hundreds of times. And we just want to streamline things a bit in the support group because it gets a little monotonous for us to answer the same question every day, 10 times a day. So we do have a policy of, if you're going to join a support group, to please research, our resources that are in the support group that are free before you post a question, because again, we've answered the same question many, many times, and it gets a little heartbreaking to do that every day. So, help you. We're trying to help you help yourselves. And then we have our family assistance program. Again, this is where some of the funds go that we raise. If we have a low income family that can't afford to pay for a medical recommendation, say they want to go see Dr. Goldstein because she's amazing, and she is, but she's $600 a year and they can't afford it, we can help pay for that if they fill out some forms, or if they've already got the medical recommendation and they are paying for cannabis and they can't afford to pay for cannabis because it's killing their budget. We unfortunately cannot give you money for cannabis. We're federally not allowed to do that. But we can help pay for utility bills. So if you can prove to us that you are buying cannabis for your child, and we ask for some documents, then and provide us with a bill, a utility bill that you want us to help pay, we have a certain amount of money that we can pay up to help support families who, again, are struggling to afford cannabis. We do have, if you want to join a membership and $30 a year is too much for you, we can discount that. We want everyone to learn. So, I mean, if that's just too much, then, we can take that down to, whatever it needs to be. We do get a lot of in-kind donations from companies that we work with, and we just pass them along to families. We're like the middleman, and they donate to us, and we donate to you. So that's always very, very nice for families who need that, to try different things. And it's a way of trying different products that we can legally gift. And we do go to some events where we get free tickets, and we'll, pass this on to those members, or discounted tickets, give codes and all that stuff. Whatever we can do to help families go out there and educate themselves, we're trying to do. So where you can find us, again, we have our support group on Facebook. But if you go on Facebook, you don't have to copy that link. You just go on Facebook and search WPA4A. You will find us. We're not hard to find. Just answer. There's a couple questions, that you have to answer. Just make sure you answer the questions, and make sure that you are who you are. And Facebook public page, that's where we post public announcements. So if you don't want to join a support group, maybe you don't have a child with autism, so you don't want to see all those posts from family members who are struggling with their child. Maybe you just want to see the basic information of the newest science that comes out about autism and cannabis. We'll post that on our public page. You can like that, and we'll post it when stuff comes out, or any information that comes along about cannabis and autism, we'll post it there. We're also on Instagram, WPA4A. Again, our website, WPA4A.org. And if you have any questions that you want to just email us directly, again, please no medical questions. info@WPA4A.org. We can help you as best we can. Again, but do keep in mind, it's just Jenni and I answering those emails. So give us a little grace on responding. Sometimes it takes us a few days. And that's pretty much it for the presentation. We wanted to open it up to questions for everyone who has come to watch this amazing webinar. And I think Candace has some questions as well that she's already got going. So
yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. I'm really happy to have you guys here. And like I was saying before, it's really, you guys have a wealth of information for families that are really starting this journey. The support group is amazing. I had no idea about the other things that you guys offer, the assistance paying for the doctor's recommendations, which, can be a huge help because, like you said, Dr. Goldstein is amazing. You couldn't ask to see a better doctor. But sometimes that's steep for families, that are already have medical bills. And sometimes you have to have one parent at home caring for your child. So that's really great. And so I do encourage everybody to join and to become a member and to help support the work that you guys are doing. How many families do you think, like, over the 6 years you guys have helped so far?
I don't know. It's
At least 30,000, because that's the Facebook page, right?
Yeah, not everyone goes in there and asks direct questions, but some of them are kind of like stalkers. They go in there and they just kind of, and we love those people. They do their own research. They search the group. They use the search function. They just go to the files and they read. They watch the webinars that we have available, and they just learn on their own because we provide all this information in some form, some shape or form. And you can, if you're resourceful enough, you can figure out what to do on your own. But we do also obviously take questions and we answer the questions best we can. But it is a lot of work. This is why we started the nonprofit, because when Jenni and I started, I'll mention again, there was nothing out there. There was nothing for us. And so we, like, few videos on YouTube, few blogs, there was nothing else. And so it was disheartening when we saw how wonderful it was for our children that other families were having the same type of roadblocks. So we wanted to kind of push some of those roadblocks aside and, give them the information where they can learn about it themselves and decide for themselves if they want to do this. And it's been an amazing journey. And again, I don't know how many people we've helped. 30,000 people. Yeah, I don't know how many of them actually started. I wish when I did a poll that all of them would answer my questions. But when I do a poll in the group, I'm lucky to get maybe 150, 200 people responding out of 30,000. Some people just don't want to take those polls. So, I don't know how many people we've helped, but, it's been an amazing experience. And, we hear stories all the time from families that have come through. I think I've even seen some people post in the chat that how we've helped them. And it's amazing to see that, because sometimes, as a nonprofit, this is not something we're doing to get rich. We're not making millions of dollars off this. We're doing this because we want other families to experience the joy that we've experienced.
That's amazing. I thank you guys again. I love supporting you guys because the work you do is it's great. Being that you've spoken to so many families, that have lived, different parts of the country and other countries, what do you think the biggest hurdle is for people trying to start integrating cannabis into, like, their regimen or into their kids' regimen?
Jenni, you want to take that one?
Well, I think a lot of it can depend on where they live. Of course, the biggest hurdle, I think, for everyone is, do you even have legal access to it? Especially when you're talking about medicating a minor. We have parents in the group with children as young as 2 years old, and we've had our fair share of parents getting CPS called on them, even just for hemp oils. So we stress, get legal. If you're going to touch any form of cannabis, hemp, whatever they have it labeled as, be legal for all of it. Cover yourself for every single part of it, because you can still test positive for THC with a hemp oil product. And a lot of people just don't understand that. But legalities are the probably the first, the most important thing, and then it's just a matter of access. What do the dispensaries even have? A state like Minnesota, they have like 5 different products, or Texas. Texas has oils that you can either get a 30-to-1, a 3-to-1, a 1-to-1, or that's it. And they're all in oil form. You don't know, and they're distillates too, so there's probably no terpenes in it. You're just, that's all you have. Here in California, my biggest frustration is because my son is so terpene sensitive. And those profiles can really make or break whether or not he is calm and happy, or he's running around with his eyes just, wide open, bouncing off the walls, not sleep, like he's on speed. And that's because maybe a strain has too much pinene in it. But that personally for me is one of the bigger obstacles. And even going into the dispensaries, unfortunately not every bud tender understands how important terpenes are, and they can't even get that. Even if they do, they can't always get the access because the distributor might not even test for that. You might not be able to easily just scan a QR code or pull it up on a website or something. And I know that we push for our families to be as educated as they can possibly be. We want them to go in there and say, okay, I need to see the certificate of analysis. I need to see the lab reports. And we arm them with the knowledge of how to read those things and what to look for. But then they get to the dispensary and they're like, oh, well, we don't even test for that in the state. That's not a requirement. Or, they might show just a standard pie chart. It might be, limiting dominant, but how much is actually in there? It's just a lack of consistency, a lack of available information. I think, that's where some of our more advanced families who have been doing this for a while, they might be dealing with that more than a brand new family who might be getting pushback from their primary care doctors, or who might find a cannabis doctor who refuses to write a recommendation for a 6-year-old. There are so many things that can make things. Yes. There are just so many things that can make it tough for families. Yes. I got to mute now. Excuse me.
That was wonderful. I definitely agree. There's lots of challenges. Number one, like you said, definitely the state that you're in and the legality there, and then the market in your state and what you have access to, and like what the standards are really with those products, and whether your state like California, where they're starting to include all the terpenes and the amounts that they have in them, in other states that are just barely even requiring the products to be tested. So a lot there. But again, go back to your guys' website, read the resources there, and then do your research before you go to these dispensaries. See if there's dispensaries that are more geared towards medical users that can help walk you through and spend the time that you might need to find the product that's right for you. And maybe even contacting them ahead of time and saying, I'm looking for this product or a product that has like these terpenes. And then maybe they can take some time and try to source the right thing for you. So that's really great guidance. A good question, because you guys started talking about that, is from your guys' polling of all of your members. Are there terpenes that you find are most beneficial and like ones that people should stay away from in general, or is it different for every kiddo?
Well, there are some that we see are more commonly helpful, but just like the terpene profiles, or just like the people, the terpene profiles vary so much on their own. I mean, some of our more aggressive kids do tend to do better with high percentages of the heavier, the myrcene, the linalool, the beta-caryophyllene even. That's a good one. But then, there is a group, and it does seem to be getting a little bit more significant. It was kind of a rarer group in the beginning, where we kind of lovingly call them opposites. And I'm an opposite myself, where I actually use the uplifting terpenes to sleep. Just like someone who is taking stimulants for ADHD, you need the uplifting to actually calm you. We're kind of a smaller group with that, at least in the autism community. But I would think if we were leading an ADHD group, ADD group, that might be a significant number. But autism is a pretty common comorbid diagnosis with autism. So sometimes you have to balance the two. Okay, he's aggressive, but he also has ADHD. Now what do I do?
Yeah.
And that's where, knowing what these values are, and tracking that data. And Rhonda made some gorgeous data tracking forms on our that are available on our website for just a small fee, and you can print out as much as you need to after you purchase it. But that's where you just need to keep track of what those details are of the strains itself, and then your response. And after a while, you'll see the patterns. You should be able to hopefully tailor and just kind of process of elimination of going through some of these different strains and different profiles and cannabinoids and everything. And, just spread it all out, read it, and just say, hey, okay, we tried this. I need kind of something in between. Bam, that's what I should do next.
Mm-hmm.
In a perfect world, that's what would happen. But
And I will say that with data, with our surveys, I think we've tried to do a terpene survey in our support group at some point. There's just not enough families that were really doing a lot of the tracking that we suggest that they do. And I think a lot of it, again, has to go back to what the previous question and answer. It just wasn't available to families. We help families, again, all over the world and all over this country. And a lot of states don't provide that terpene information. A lot of, even in states that do, like California, not every product has it, not every flower has it, not every lab result will have it. It's just so hit and miss that we couldn't really gather a lot of good information. But from the trends that we see, as Jenni mentioned, sedating, the more sedating terpenes seem to work pretty well for a lot of the aggressive kiddos, but it's not always 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter was doing good, but she was doing good on hybrids. She needed some sedating, but she needed also some uplifting. She needed somewhere in the middle. So it just was a case-by-case thing, and you really have to track it on your own and figure it out for your, it's a personalized medicine. I don't know if anyone as a parent has access to trying it themselves. I've tried it here in California I have some anxiety and other issues that I use it for. It's very personalized. One strain will do one thing to me and another strain will do something completely different. And you just kind of have to figure out what works for you. Mm-hmm. And that's a matter of looking at what's in it besides the cannabinoids, and what information we have is the terpenes, and trying to figure out, okay, these types of strains work for me. It's the same process that you have to go through with your child. What strains, what terpene profiles works for your child, because the strains are very different and you're going to get different effects depending on what you use.
Yeah. And I agree with you, trial and error and, the experimentation can sometimes be the frustrating part, can be the hard part, but, it's important to keep a cannabis journal and just keep on trying different things until you find what's right for you. And like Jenni said, sometimes, what typically works for somebody may work differently for you. So, don't count things out, try everything until you find exactly what, and then things change too. I know you've gone through adolescence, and like hormones, and that can even change, a regimen that was working before may need to get adjusted.
Yeah, my daughter went through puberty recently, and what we had that was working amazingly for her before puberty, we had to toss it out the window. And I had to go back to Dr. Goldstein, and I had to really powwow with her for an hour or two and kind of go over, okay, this is what we're seeing now with what was working before. And how do we adjust it now that she's dealing with puberty? Mm-hmm. And yeah, puberty was a game changer for us. I think it's a game changer for anybody, no matter if you're using cannabis or not. But it was definitely what was working wasn't working after puberty, and we had to go almost back to scratch and start over with, okay, let's see what cannabinoids work. Let's see what strains work. Let's trial and error this until we find what works. So it's a process. And I think someone else mentioned it on the side too. Sometimes you have to, you have to do that. Sometimes it works for a while and it works great. And your body and your receptors get used to it, and and it doesn't work as well anymore. And you got to kind of, okay, let's start over again. Let's figure this out. So it's definitely a process, but I think you see the benefits of it, and you don't want to give up on that.
Yeah. It's kind of on the same line. Is there a general consensus from the polls that you guys have taken about cannabinoids and which cannabinoids seem to be most beneficial? Like, besides like THC, CBD, are there some minor cannabinoids that families should do some more research on?
Yeah, CBG can actually work for some families if, okay, the deal with CBG, or sorry, with CBD is that because it's biphasic, well, actually all cannabis is, it does different things at low doses than it does for higher doses. And especially for autism, it seems to be very agitating at low doses. So that's why, low and slow for just that one cannabinoid tends to be just really, really, really bad advice. For all the other ones, yes, start low and slow for every other cannabinoid except for CBD. But, for some people who can't, and CBD won't work for everyone. It could just be too agitating, even at 200 milligram doses, 400 milligram doses, whatever. But for some people, they have found success where they are using CBG with some of the same results as CBD can give for some people, but without the agitation. I think that Rhonda, that might have been Dr. Goldstein who initially was kind of looking into that. And I know that that cannabinoid has actually been pretty well. And we did do a poll on that particular one in our group. And Dr. Goldstein has actually used our poll to present at a few different conferences, different medical professional conferences in the U.S. and abroad. She's taken our little nice graph all over the place, and Rhonda might be able to speak more on that. But some of them we don't really hear too much about, like CBDA. Some people are using it, but when they come to us and ask us what to do about it, unfortunately, a lot of what we share with people comes from real life member experiences, from published studies, from speaking to professionals like Dr. Goldstein and others. And if the data just isn't there, we're very data and information driven, and just sort of crowdsourcing that information from our own families. So some of them, CBDA, CBGA, CBDV, that's kind of like a buzz now of CBDV for autism, because the Department of Defense, I think, is funding a study for that. But as far as I know, I'm not even sure if it's been finalized yet, but I don't think it's been published. I don't know if Rhonda has seen that come across anywhere, but
I haven't seen that study come through. Last I talked to them, they were still in the very beginnings of getting volunteers for that study. That was a few years ago when I talked to them. But yeah, a lot of those studies, though, they do work with like isolated forms, which has their pros and cons to that. And like the CBD, not CBD, like the CBDV, the THCV, a lot of these newer cannabinoids that are coming out, the minor cannabinoids, they're getting them and they're concentrating them, they're isolating them from the plant, and they're taking it out of the plant, the small amounts, and concentrating them down. And that's how they're getting some of these cannabinoids into oils or other products. And that's okay, but we're a whole plant group, so we tend to kind of recommend to families to try and find whole plant products where it's more than just the isolated form, because the isolated form, even the isolated form of CBD, when you don't have the terpenes, when you don't have the other plant compounds in there, it seems to you seem to need a lot more of it. And it seems to cause a lot more side effects when you're going at a much higher dose. All of the other compounds that are in the plant, all the other terpenes, all the other cannabinoids, the minor ones, everything else going in the plant, it allows it to work for some reason a little bit better, and you don't have to take a higher dose. And this has been talked about at many different medical conferences. Dr. Goldstein has talked about this. It's just something that's well known in the cannabis industry that when you have everything going on in the plant, it's all present, it's all there, you have some sort of synergy, and it makes it where you don't need to take 1,000 milligrams of CBD. You can use 100 milligrams, and it has the same effect. And when you're taking 1,000 milligrams of the isolated form of CBD, you're now looking at some side effects that you aren't going to see at 100 milligrams. So we always tell families, if you can, find a whole plant source. We tend to see more success that way. And some of these minor cannabinoids, while great, they're going to be probably isolated cannabinoids that have been isolated from the plant. And again, there's just not enough information about it out there. And, most likely the isolated form, you're going to see some different things if you've seen versus seeing it in a whole plant type of form. So CBDA, great for inflammation, THCA, all those things are great for some of the things that autistic children or autistic individuals deal with. But will it change their aggressive behavior? Will it, do some amazing things for them on its own? Probably not. We don't see a lot of families using just those cannabinoids, but we do see some families that they'll use THC and they'll use THCA as well, or they'll use CBD and they'll use CBDA, and they want to put that in there because they know it has some great medicinal qualities, and they know that their kid's fighting inflammation of the gut, and they want to put that in there because they feel it's going to be helpful. And there are some products available that are, especially with like CBDA and CBGA, you can get those now because they're considered hemp. So you can kind of get those online. Do they use them alone? I think most of the families in our support group use either THC or CBD or both of those together.
That's awesome. And I think that brings it back to like why you guys named the organization Whole Plant Access for Autism. There's success in some families using these isolates, but really, the whole plant, all the minor and major cannabinoids, terpenes, flavonoids, all that working together seems to provide the most benefit. There's so much to unpack, and a good place I would say if anybody wants to learn more or find out like what's happening with all the studies that you guys mentioned is to join the Facebook group, because when they become available, I'm sure that you guys will put them up there. Yeah. A question I had come through a couple times, and one of my other questions is, you talked a little bit about CPS, and there's a lot of families, like for instance, my son, we had ABA therapy coming to the home every single day for like 2 years. And so every time they came, it was like, clear the house, like pick up anything, even pins with the marijuana name on it, and I was so worried about something happening. So like, what is your suggestions for people that have ABA in the house every day, or that are just worried about, CPS, people reporting them, and trying to get them in trouble? What would your guys' suggestions be?
Well, just like we're not doctors, we're also not attorneys.
Yes.
So, this shouldn't be taken as legal advice. But, just always be legal. If you are in a state that has a cannabis program, even if you want to use CBD isolate, even if you want to, if you think, oh, everyone's on board, everyone, they're excited about me doing this, you know what? That can change. Families end up fighting. You wind up getting a new therapist that doesn't, whatever it is. Your kid has a seizure, and you wind up in the ER, and they run a drug panel. They're having a meltdown. They run a drug panel. They're mandated reporters. They have to turn you in. ABA therapists are mandated reporters. That piece of paper that you get from the cannabis doctor, or whatever the doctor that made you a legal patient in your state, and I know it kind of varies state to state who does that. but that's often your only defense against whether they're going to come in and take your child away for giving them illegal narcotics. And we do work with I don't know if Bridget's in this chat or not. Hopefully she is, because she's great, but her organization in Colorado tends to field a lot of phone calls from families that are at the oh crap, CPS was called, what do I do? So and so told me that, well, hemp oils are legal now because of the farm bill. And the problem with that is that may be true to a degree, but child endangerment laws were not updated to coincide with those farm bill laws. So there, and this is according to her extensive research that she's done and passed on to us, because even I didn't know. I thought hemp oils would have been fine for kids across the board. And she's given us examples, and she's backed it up with actual state statutes that that show this. But you just be legal, educate yourself, cover your butt. Try to just do everything you can to protect yourself. It's probably like a need to know basis. I don't think I would go out there and advertise even the hemp oils. I don't think I would advertise that if you have a child. And we do have kids that are very, very, very young. They're toddlers. And if a toddler shows up in an ER and they run a drug screen for whatever reason, and all of a sudden there's THC in a 2-year-old system, that's not going to be a good look if that toddler isn't a legal cannabis patient with a valid reason to have that in their system.
Yeah, I would completely agree. That's really, really good insight. We have a lot of people asking about doctors. Many, many questions coming through the feed. People, inside California and outside California. Do you guys have that as a resource on your guys' website, or is there like a place where people can go to look to find like local doctors?
Not on our website, but we do have a list in the Facebook group. So if they want to join the Facebook group, we do have a file with several states. I think most of the legal states are listed. There are a few where I think that there's, either we never got doctor information, or maybe we don't have enough families from that state. Like off the top of my head, I don't think we have a single doctor listed for Montana. I don't know. I know we have Montana members, but they've just never given us the information. So we do our best to keep a list of doctors who will recommend. But sometimes the office is closed down. Sometimes we might not have everyone listed. But you can always join the group, check out the files, and the file is just called Cannabis Doctors. It's very easy to find. And worst comes to worst, you can always make a post, search your location in there, and you live in Nevada, type Nevada in the search bar and see what's come up about that state. But yeah, I mean, we do have a resource for that. I can't give a bunch of names of doctors on this thread, but these families are more than welcome to join our support group and poke around in our files and look for the one that lists all the cannabis doctors that we know of.
Wonderful. Yeah, there was a person who was asking about doctors like Dr. Goldstein's caliber that will also see adults too. So do you guys have like underneath like sees, children and adults, or like sees specifically children only? Is that information that's also on the doctor's list?
No, I think we just have the doctors listed. We, when I created that document a long time ago, we had a notes section and we would put that kind of information in notes. But I will say that a lot of doctors come and go, and that information is valid for, maybe a year or two and that doctor retires or they move out of state. And that list may not always have the most up-to-date information. Again, we're just a bunch of volunteers. It's something we do on the side. So, we would love help maintaining some of these files if anyone wants to come help us out. But yeah, that would be a great thing to have, pediatric versus adult. I know Dr. Goldstein only sees pediatrics now. But she will, if you're in California, I know if you do call her and you have an adult child, she does have a doctor that she recommends. She doesn't just say, I can't help you. She does recommend you to someone else who can see adults that's in the area. Again, I don't recall her name at this point. But yeah, that's something that we do have available. But again, keep in mind, we are volunteers.
Yeah.
That file was made quite a few years ago, and it may not have all the up-to-date information. We do ask from time to time in a support group for families to chime in and say, I'm in this state and, this is my doctor. We don't get a lot of volunteers, providing all that information in this support group. I'm not sure how we can wrestle it out of people any better than asking them, but it's like Jenni said, you can go in there and you can search whatever state you're in, find a post talking about that state and maybe ask the person who made the post, who did you go see? That's a way a lot of families, I think, do it in the support group. Someone who's done it before them, like who did you see? Where are they located? How much they cost? What's their website? And most families in the support group are very helpful if they get like a direct comment like that on a post they made or something. Because it's all about, finding the information, and that's what the support group is about, is, finding the information that you need. And you can also just Google your state and Google cannabis doctors, and, you can go down the list. A lot of states have directories, whether or not they can help an autistic child. That's where it becomes a little iffy, because some doctors will not work with children at all. So it becomes a bit of a search, unfortunately.
And a lot of the really good docs who started practicing medicine like 25 years ago are now retiring. So again, I would agree with that.
Well, and you do have to remember too that doctors are also legally limited to what they can even discuss with you. Because it is a federally illegal, Schedule I narcotic. It's on the same level of, it would be like legally going to a doctor and asking them how much ecstasy you should take. They're on the same, drug schedule. So, they can't really get in too much on doses and what time of day, because that could all be considered prescribing, which is a huge no-no. They can recommend the use of cannabis, but they can't prescribe any exact, take this, buy this, get it from this place, that they could lose their medical license over that. So there are some doctors like Dr. Goldstein who, does what she can in that respect to help. Sorry. Others just, they don't even want to touch that liability. So they give the recommendation, and you can't blame them. They don't want to lose their medical license over it. So, that is something to be concerned with too, is, even if you find a doctor, you probably shouldn't expect them to come up with a magic formulation for you, because number one, they legally really can't to a point. And number two, that's just not how it works. It is all just like pharmaceuticals. It's trial and error. Even with medications, the medications that they can prescribe to you, it's still trial and error. That they're still probably going to try 4 different things, at least, dozens of different things, depending on what the issue is. But, it's just not easy as, hey, find me a great cannabis doctor. Let me know, exactly what to get. And, you're riding off into the sunset because, even with the best doctor in the world, it's just still not that easy. So
yeah. That's really great insight. We have so many questions that came in, a lot of really good ones. Again, some of them they're outside of the scope of what we want to talk about today. Some are just like a lot to unpack. But one that the last question that I'll give you guys, because it's one that I see over and over again coming through the question feed. Have you guys noticed a difference between the route of administration? So like, kiddos or adults that use like vapes versus like the tinctures. Have you noticed anything there? Any preference or success?
Yeah, well, I think if you're looking to treat something that's, you need immediate effect, you're going to want to look for something that takes effect immediately, which and is going to be vaping. I know some parents don't want to see their kids vaping, and that's something that you kind of got to get over if your child is banging their head against the wall and possibly causing some other damage that may be permanent to that child. So vaping, because it is going to act quickly, usually 5 minutes before it gets into their system and up to their brain, you're going to see that be something that will stop aggressive behaviors fairly quickly. Versus taking an oil or a pill or an edible, those have to go through your GI tract, and that's going to take quite a bit longer to where it's going to hit, and they're going to feel it. So if you're looking to treat behaviors and you're looking to do this every day, and you're going to give them this dose of cannabis every day on a daily basis, you can dose with a oil or edible, and that's appropriate. Keeping it in their system as level as possible. But if you're looking to treat something on top of that, like aggression, you might want to consider also having the vape pen or some sort of vape apparatus available, so that when that aggression hits, you can get them to do something like that. And it's not always going to be easy. I know that there's some families who want to use vape, and they're like, how do I get my child to vape when they're like hitting me and they're punching me? How do I get around that? And that's not. There are ways to kind of, there's ways to do it. It's not easy. It takes a bit of effort. We have some families whose kids they don't know how to vape, so they have to use a mask. We have a father that did that, and he has videos on how he made his mask because his daughter could not. She was so low functioning. I hate using that word, but she wasn't able to figure out how to vape with step it up. So they had to use a mask for her so that she could inhale it through the mask. So it's you got to take a look at your kid. If you're treating a child, and you got to figure out, can I get close to them with a vape pen when they're aggressive? Do I want to be treating what kind of behaviors? And the route does affect, mostly affects when it takes effect. Quick versus it takes a little bit longer.
Yeah, and with the vaping, I am a huge advocate for it. If we started on cannabis when he was 5, I would have had him vaping at 5. There's no question in my mind. But you need to use the layers. You need a long lasting and a fast acting, because while the vaping is boom, pretty instant, it only lasts you so long. And you can't send your kid to 3rd grade with a vape pen. That's not going to go over too well in a classroom. So you need something that's going to be longer lasting, and then you can use the vape for a boost. If you can see anxiety kicking in, have them vape before it. If you have grandma coming over and she just annoys them for some reason, hand them the vape pen and teach them when they're calm. You don't want to wait until there's a crisis and try to stick this, chase them around the house with this vape pen and try to expect them to not only learn it, but be compliant in using it. You want it to be second nature, so that when there is a problem, I can just hand it off and he takes it and, he vapes, and, I just sit back and wait for him to be done with it. But, you don't want to wait. with any of this, but you do need consistent dosing. You know, you're much better off having consistent dosing in your system, whether it's with oils, capsules made out of plant matter, which is popular in our group, and that's what my son primarily uses. Decarboxylated, just plant matter ground up in a capsule. It doesn't get any simpler or cleaner than that. You just need to have different intake methods for different scenarios, and think of it as taking a Motrin when you have a headache. That's what the vaping is. It's a PRN. It's something you can take as needed, but you also want to have something in your system that's consistent to prevent the issues in the first place. It's a whole lot easier to prevent an aggressive episode than it is to try to scramble and stop it. Trust me. I've been dealing with them for many, many years. So, if you can keep the aggression at bay, and then when those breakthrough episodes do happen, then, have that quick tool in your tool belt, but make sure that they know how to use it when the crap goes down,
That's a good point. And cannabis, all the different ways that you use it really is like having a toolbox, and understanding how all the different things work. So you may notice one day that your kiddo, needs the vape. Your kiddo, might benefit from a nice, cannabis massage, help them relax, or if they've had some like injurious behavior, dealing with that. There's so many ways that you can use it. And once you really understand how they all differ, it gives you so many more resources. Thank you guys so much for all your time. We still have some questions. I apologize to those that we couldn't get to. Some of those were a little bit too close to like medical questions that we kind of wanted to stay more general. But I would say definitely everyone, please join the WPAA Facebook page. Please become a member. I'm really glad to help support and to be able to receive all the resources. Some of the questions too were about like things that they saw on the slides, and most of these resources you can find on your website or on the Facebook page, right? Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you guys again. This has been really, really insightful, and I know that we've helped so many people really kind of get a basic understanding, because there's a lot to understand. So most important is do your research first. And then if there's things that you really need help bringing together or a little bit of opinion, there are great places like WPAA Facebook page where you can ask your families and get their insight. So thank you guys once again.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Yeah. And thanks to all of our guests for being with us here today. We were able to share some information that will help you become better informed cannabis consumers or parents of people who could benefit from cannabis, and that the information that we've helped provide will help provide you relief. Thank you, everybody, and we look forward to seeing you guys in another episode. Bye.
Bye.